Ben Bradshaw.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm very pleased to be able to speak in this debate, and I'd like to thank my front bench for securing this debate. I think our first Opposition Day debate for goodness knows how long. I've lost count, it's been so long. But very important, I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, just about a week before hundreds of local councillors and council candidates across the country from all parties are going to the polls. I think this House recognises we've been embroiled for the last few months in the Brexit nightmare, as has the government. But in the meantime, the vital work of local government has continued, and that includes the vital work of hundreds, if not thousands, of local councillors to ensure that all of our local communities are provided with the services and support on which they depend. And local councillors, as often forgotten, give an awful lot of time for not very much reward to keep the wheels of local democracy running. And they're doing so at the moment, Madam Deputy Speaker, in unprecedentedly difficult circumstances. Central government funding for local councils like mine in Exeter has been cut by a massive 60% since 2010, and that has put an intolerable strain on both their budgets and their ability to deliver local services. And don't forget, this has come on top of the big cuts to the police service, the fire service, schools and other local services. And there can be few of us or our constituents who have not experienced the impact of these cuts, whether the loss of a teacher or a classroom assistant from one of our schools, difficulty in obtaining the care we need for a vulnerable child or a vulnerable elderly relative, the absence of a local police officer from the streets in our area, or the unrepaired potholes in the street outside our front doors. And at the same time as the government has cut support to local councils like mine in Exeter, it's expected them to raise more of their own funds that they spend locally through the local council tax. And that is why my constituents and others around the country have now faced year upon year of above-inflation increases in their council tax. And as we all recognise, I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, council tax is a very unfair tax. Unlike income tax, which funds central government funding, it does not take into account accurately people's ability to pay. This year in Exeter, for example, Devon County Council, which levies the bulk of our local council tax, has put its charge up by 4%, 3.99%, but let's call it 4%, while the Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner has put her council tax up by a whopping 12.75%, so that my constituencies in Exeter now pay significantly more through their council tax for policing than we do for all of the local services provided by Exeter City Council. And these cuts in government support have inevitably meant that local councillors have had to make some very difficult and, in some cases, unpopular decisions. The Prime Minister announced at the Tory party conference last autumn that austerity, the era of cuts, was over, but that simply is not true. Exeter City Council has to find a further £3.9 million of savings this year and next. So far, Madam Deputy Speaker, their good financial management and our city's relative economic success have enabled our council to do this without damaging cuts to vital local services, while the Labour Council has maintained one of the lowest district council tax rates in the whole of England. And our council has ambitious but essential plans to tackle transport congestion, provide more council housing and social housing, and much more in the years ahead. But the longer this austerity, the longer these government cuts go on, the more challenging delivering that vision becomes. Let me turn briefly to social care, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend who chairs the Local Government Select Committee for his excellent speech on this matter. I think we are all completely aware of the crisis in our social care services and the devastating impact, that knock-on impact, that is having on the health service and other services. And indeed, the Health and Social Care Committee has published countless reports and had countless inquiries into this area. And I would echo the words of my honourable friend in sincerely urging the government and our own front bench to look seriously at the excellent recommendations that we published following our joint inquiry last year. It's often said, Madam Deputy Speaker, that solving the long-term sustainability funding problem for social care is impossible because it is simply too difficult to reconcile the different interests, too controversial for politicians to agree. Well, we did in our joint inquiry. Politicians from across the political spectrum, from the hard right, let's call it, or the Thatcherite right, to the socialist left. We unanimously agreed a blueprint that provides the government, or whoever is in government, with a sustainable and equitable solution to the challenges of long-term social care funding. And until we crack this one, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're not going to be able to resolve many of the other problems and challenges that honourable members have raised and will indeed raise later on in this debate. So please, Madam Deputy Speaker, will the government use our report as a starting point when it finally publishes its green paper, whenever that may be? Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, as we face the elections in 8 days' time, I'd like to pay tribute to all local government and local councillors of all parties who've had a pretty thankless task in recent years, but have still achieved some amazing things. And in particular, I'd like to thank and pay tribute to the leader of Exeter City Council, Pete Edwards, who is retiring next week. Pete is an old-style Labour leader, a local Exonian lad. He was a bus driver who rose up through the RMT union to run our city over the last 10 years, and pretty challenging 10 years it has been. His no-nonsense approach, which can at times come across as rather gruff, might not always be to everybody's taste, but those of us who know him well and have worked with him closely over the years know Pete has always had the interests of Exeter and its peoples at the very heart of everything that he has done. And it's no surprise that Exeter, under his leadership, has risen to become one of our most successful and thriving cities. That's in no small part down to Pete. So, thank you, Pete.